It's that time of year. It's the Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special. Our hosts decide for all 32 teams who their next cornerstone player will be. Who will reach? Who will fall? Find out now.
Welcome into the 2025 Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special. The most comprehensive mock draft you'll find is even bigger and better again this year. This 7-episode series will take you through the entire first round of the NFL draft with unparalleled insight from the local experts of all 32 teams here at the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Throughout this binge-worthy special, you'll get each selection and an inside look from all 32 of our local NFL shows. We'll also get team-building insight from the draft dudes, Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, and fantasy insight from our Locked On Fantasy experts for some of the biggest selections in this year's draft. This year, the final episode will be an NFL squad reaction to the mock draft, providing insight and maybe insults from a group of our Locked On hosts that love to jab each other when they get the opportunity. And that'll be a loose conversation that'll be a lot of fun in episode 7, and local experts on all of this year's selections. And of course, we are your hosts. I am Brian Peacock, NFL analyst and the co-host of the Peacock and Williamson NFL show and Locked On 49ers podcast. Here with me, a phenomenal panel, my co-host, former NFL scout, Matt Williamson. And this year, things just keep getting better. Joining Matt and I are NFL draft experts, Keith Sanchez and Damian Parson from the outstanding Locked On NFL Draft podcast. To open the conversation, Matt, Damian, and Keith, it's all about the talent in this year's draft. And some might say it's actually not that good of a draft. Are we lacking talent this year? Dame, Keith, you guys do this every single day, all season long, even in the offseason, talking about the NFL draft. Dame, let's start with you. Is this just a bad draft in 2025?
No, it's not a bad draft. Okay. Like, this is a good draft. When you have the depth at specific positions, like, edge rusher, interior defensive line, running back, tight end, you have good offensive linemen from tackle, guard, center, guard tackles that can play guard and center. There's versatility there. The cornerback class is good. We have an underrated safety group. The problem is we don't have the quarterback class that everybody wanted to have like we had last year. If we had a quarterback class like that, if this class had last year's quarterback class, this narrative about it being a down year wouldn't exist.
Keith, how do you settle from a scouting perspective the idea of, okay, this player, I like his tape, but man, he didn't run a 40. I feel like there's less boxes checked with a lot of prospects. And I think that's where a lot of people are when they're analysts and they're looking at this draft class and they're like, well, I like this guy, but he didn't even run a 40. I like this guy. Arms might be a little short. Is this a trust the tape year? And does that mean the teams with the best scouts are going to be the teams that come away looking the best after this NFL draft?
This is without a doubt a WTF moment, and WTF means watch the film, right? That's what I always say, watch the film over here. And you're going to have to heavily rely on that because you have prospects like a Ashton Genty, right, who we've placed in the top 10, and we have no idea how fast he is, right? So it's definitely you're going to have to rely on the film, but I'm with DP. I think this is an exciting draft, and I'll say this. I think just with the quarterbacks, I really like this quarterback class. I think there are NFL starters in this quarterback class. I think what we're lacking is just narrative, right? But that's why we're here. We're going to drive the conversation and get the fans excited.
Let's drive this conversation. What is this draft about to you, Matt? And as I feel like I've heard this before where it's like, it's not a very good draft. And all of a sudden, here's a bunch of Pro Bowlers. Here's a bunch of all pros. You just got to pick the right ones, right?
Yeah, and I'm not going to fight Damian because I mostly agree, and I really like the D-line class, the tight ends, the running backs, the depth overall. Day 2, it looks really, really strong. I just think the first half of the first round is kind of crappy, to be honest with you. Like, I don't know that Mason Graham would be considered an elite prospect most years, or where would Joe Alt go in this draft? Second overall? There's not pure tackles. There's not first round guaranteed quarterbacks, premium positions. And even last year, where would Quinyon Mitchell or Brian Thomas, if they were coming out of school, go in this draft? Those guys were mid-20s. There's no way they get out of the top 10 in this draft,
The Tennessee Titans are on the clock with the pick number 1 in this Locked On NFL mock draft special. Tyler Rowan, the host of Locked On Titans, there waiting to make this pick. And with a lack of some blue chip talent, and I think there are a couple of blue chip guys in this draft. Obviously, Cam Ward is presumed to be the selection. What do you guys think about Cam Ward as a quarterback prospect? Is he good enough as a quarterback prospect, what he could be for you and the Tennessee Titans, to pass up on, say, an Abdul Carter or a Travis Hunter? Even if there's fewer blue chippers this year, there are still some blue chippers. Keith, Dame, do you guys have any really strong opinions on Cam Ward potentially being a pick here at number 1?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll say take him. Titans, everything has a line, right? You need a quarterback. You're picking at number 1. You didn't have to trade away a bunch of draft capital, right? You earned the number 1 overall pick by being really bad last year. You need a quarterback. Take Cam Ward. I think he's Caleb Williams light. And what I mean is that when you watch the pocket mobility, his ability to escape, he holds on the football from time to time, but he has an electric arm, what we've seen in the pro day, right? So I think he can make all of the throws on the field. So you hand him over, you're the GM, you make the selection, you hand him over to the head coach. The head coach has worked with Joe Burrow, right? So you like that situation, and I think Cam Ward is definitely the pick for the Tennessee Titans. I would make the pick if I was the GM.
Same. I'm of that same mindset. You have to change the guard at quarterback, right? Because if you run it back, you take Abdul, you take Travis Hunter. What is the wins over expectation? How does that shift? I don't think it shifts much if you still got Will Levis under center and he doesn't fit this scheme. Me and Keith said that when Coach Callahan was hired on the pod, we was like, yeah, I don't think Will Levis fits the offense that he runs. He's more of a big time shot taker, and playmaker, where they're then spreading the ball out, spreading the defense horizontally. I think you go with Cam Ward, and he's a type of coachable guy that can come into this scheme with Coach Callahan, learn from him, learn how he wants this offense ran. And I think Coach Callahan is the type of coach that would tell him, everything's not going to be on you. This is not Florida, Washington State, or Incarnate Word. You don't have to be our Superman. We got some guys that can help you.
Keith, I don't know. Caleb Williams light. Caleb Williams heavy to me. Cam Ward's a little thick out there. We are underway. The pick is in. Tyler Rowland standing by, the host of Locked On Titans, to make the pick at number 1 in the 2025 Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special.
With the first selection in the 2025 Locked On NFL Mock Draft, the Tennessee Titans select Cam Ward, quarterback, University of Miami. There are 2 paths to go here. Either stick and pick and take your quarterback of the future, or trade down and collect more picks. 2 things happened here. Trade that made sense never materialized, and Cam Ward proved throughout the process he is good enough and worthy to be the number 1 overall selection. Now, a team that desperately needs an influx of life gets a quarterback that not only can help them on the field, but can help the Tennessee Titans off the field to have some energy and have some aura back to the franchise. Now you get a quarterback that is good enough to play from within the pocket and is precise enough and has the velocity to make all the throws, but also a quarterback that gives you the dynamic creativity that you need to be successful at the highest levels of the NFL. The Tennessee Titans get their franchise quarterback, and while there are a ton of needs still on the roster, they solidify the most important position in sports with a guy who went all the way from a 0-star recruit who no one wanted to a Heisman candidate and the number 1 pick in the NFL draft. It's time. Cam Ward is a Tennessee Titan.
There we go. It's Cam Ward. The Incarnate Word, going to the West Coast, elevating, going back to the East Coast, going to Miami, elevating. That's what it's all about, Matt. And Matt, I know, aside from being the co-host of the Peacock and Williamson NFL show, everybody make sure you subscribe. You also cover the Pittsburgh Steelers on the day-to-day, and I know the Steelers are a team that's looking at quarterbacks. You've done a lot of work at quarterbacks, and if I'm not mistaken, I do talk football with you every single day, Matt. You've kind of gotten higher and higher and are a believer in Cam Ward.
Absolutely. My grades, not what they did as rookies, but I would have had the top 3 picks from last year ahead of Ward. I was very high on all those guys. But he'd be next. I mean, I had him ahead of McCarthy and Penix and those guys. And I think he is a franchise quarterback prospect. I don't think this is a manufactured thing because of need at all. There's a lot of draft classes he'd go first overall. There's a lot to work with here. It's a slam dunk pick.
So that brings us to pick number 2 and the Cleveland Browns, who are now on the clock with one quarterback off the board, another quarterback needy team. Keith, the conversation kind of becomes similar, right? Okay, it's like, well, the first quarterback's off the board. Now, do you like the second quarterback enough? Those blue chippers, Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, still on the board. Does going from Cam Ward to potentially Shedeur Sanders, does that change that dynamic for you at number 2?
Yeah, I think they should go Shedeur Sanders here. The same situation with the Cleveland Browns. You officially need to send a sign to the Browns fan base that we are turning the page on the Deshaun Watson situation, right? We have a signal caller. We have somebody we believe in. We've seen Myles Garrett asked for a trade, right? Then got paid a lot of money, retracted that situation. So he has to have belief in the future of what the Cleveland Browns are trying to do. Shedeur Sanders said it. He said, hey, look, I've been in tough situations before. I've turned it around. There probably isn't a tougher situation over the past 50 years than being a Cleveland Browns quarterback, right? So he embraces challenges. I say, you know what? Go ahead and draft him and let's figure this thing out.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a move that you need to make. You could go, don't get me wrong, when you have to deal with Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow in the same division, Abdul Carter feels very enticing to try and get after those guys. But at some point, you have to score points. And this was not a good offense last year. And, now if they brought back Jameis and stuff like that, like, okay, I could maybe see you kicking the can down the road. You didn't do that. He's in New York now. You got to find a quarterback. And the owner came out and said, yeah, we took a big swing on Deshaun. We missed. We struck out. When you make that type of public statement, I think that signals that we need to fix this situation.
Matt, I'm torn here a little bit. Myles Garrett, as mentioned by Keith, had a change of heart. Was that the $40 million per year, or was that the quarterback plan? Probably. And so, and look, when it comes to Shedeur Sanders, is he in that group? You've done the work, Matt. What do you think? You go Shedeur, or are you going one of the blue chippers?
I very much understand the pick because they don't have cap space. They don't have a lot of resources. I just don't condone it just because I don't think Sanders has a high enough ceiling for me. I think if he hits 100%, which most don't, he turns into the current version of Geno Smith, which is good. It's better than what the Browns have played with a lot lately, but not good enough for me to pass up a blue chip player. I think Hunter's the best player in this draft. I would not have taken a quarterback here.
Is it a quarterback? Back to start our mock draft. Let's go to Spencer German, the host of Locked On Browns, standing by with pick number 2.
With the second pick of the 2025 Locked On NFL mock draft, the Cleveland Browns select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback, Colorado. There seems to be a lot of momentum right now suggesting the Browns won't be taking a quarterback at 2, and that instead they have their sights set on Abdul Carter. And Abdul Carter is a fine player, but he's not a quarterback. The Browns had a historically bad offense in 2024. It all started with the play at the quarterback position, which they have yet to find a solution for so far this offseason. Now they have one. Throughout the pre-draft process, everyone from new offensive coordinator Tommy Rees to general manager Andrew Berry to head coach Kevin Stefanski have all highlighted decision-making as the most important thing they're looking for in their next quarterback. That just so happens to be what Shedeur Sanders excels at. He was exceptionally accurate in college, and what some see as brashness and arrogance, I see as confidence, which is something a quarterback trying to make it in Cleveland absolutely, positively needs. If Sanders is good enough to be mocked to the Giants over and over again at 3, he's good enough to be selected by the Browns at number 2. Throw up those watches. Shedeur Sanders is a Cleveland Brown legendary.
It's a good point by Spencer there. If, it's almost like if Shedeur doesn't go 2, then he has to slide even past the Giants. And maybe we're getting into really interesting territory with where the second quarterback ends up going. But he does go to Cleveland here at number 2. And my question when it comes to the Browns and quarterbacks is, are they just bad at drafting quarterbacks, or do they ruin the quarterbacks that they draft? Damian, Keith, do you guys have any thoughts on the Browns and their ability to not end up with a good quarterback in the end?
To answer your question, the answer is yes. It's just yes. Okay. They're just all around yes. They're just bad. They don't develop well. I think for them, getting a Shedeur Sanders, a guy like Keith talked about kind of leading up to the pick, you need somebody that can come in and kind of thrive in that chaotic situation. The Browns need a program stabilizer mentally, and from a personality standpoint, that's what he brings. He's used to being at, schools that are not winning programs. It's not like he went to Alabama, Florida State, or somewhere else. He went to Jackson State and then went to a team that won one game the year before he got there. Like, they were not a playoff contender. They weren't a contender in any conference they were in. So I think for them, getting a guy like this, he brings that point guard style at quarterback. Jerry Jeudy saw his best year with Jameis Winston. They need to get a quarterback that can get him the ball, Cedric Tillman, and with them having picks and getting him at 2. And I hear what Matt said, right? Like, he doesn't have that high ceiling. I think getting him at 2, using the rest of your picks to build this roster up, I think really could help them by getting him and elevating his ceiling. Because you are a Niners guy. You saw what the roster could do for Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy wasn't the most talented quarterback coming out. He actually was Mr. Irrelevant. But you go to a good situation, you build that up around him, and you see good quarterback play.
Yep, confidence, guts, it's going to be important. And he was under pressure a lot, Shedeur Sanders was in college. And so you're going to have to be able to handle pressure when you get to the Cleveland Browns. So I do like that aspect of Shedeur Sanders. Number 2 now to the Cleveland Browns in our 2025 mock draft special coming up.
BG, real quick. I just want to mention one thing. So 2 things, actually. It's kind of like the Bears, too. I mean, they draft quarterbacks, they never work out. Bears and Browns. After a while, you have to look in the mirror and be like, it's not you, it's me. You know, yes. I mean, and the year I spent with the Browns on their staff, many people told me, and this is a long time ago, man, we ruined Tim Couch. We gave him no chance. And I think that's true with a lot of them since. And it's not the only reason, but the wind and weather of Cleveland and Chicago, I think, is a portion of it, a small portion of it. And that worries me with Shedeur. I mean, with my AFC North familiarity, I want a bigger, stronger power arm, beast. And I don't know that he's that.
Coming up, blue chip prospects. We're talking, is he even a wide receiver or a corner? Travis Hunter, edge rusher Abdul Carter. They're both still on the board, and someone is going to get an impact player. The New York Giants are on the clock next. This episode of the Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special is brought to you by Gametime. There's nothing like the atmosphere of an NBA playoff game. Every bucket, every defensive stop, every moment feels huge. It's electric in the arena, and with Gametime, you can be part of it without the stress of last-minute ticket hunting, even when demand is sky high. Prices on the app actually go down as tip-off gets closer, and their last-minute deals can save you up to 60%. And I've used Gametime so many times for football games, baseball games, concerts, comedy shows, theater events. Fantastic last-minute deals. Save up to 60%, and the all-in pricing means no surprise fees at checkout, which is my favorite feature. What you pay is what you get. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. All right, we're back with the Locked On Podcast Network Mock Draft Special. We've been doing this for 7 years. This is awesome. I love it every year. I love the panel of guys I get to talk to here with Matt, Dame, and Keith, all of the hosts. I love everybody coming together. And it is now time for pick number 3 in this mock draft, and it is the New York Giants who are on the clock. The decision gets a lot easier because there's no quarterback to take here. We're not going to see. I don't think we're going to see. You never know. The NFL draft is nuts. I don't think we're going to see Jalen Milroe or Jackson Dart or Tyler Shuck going here at pick number 3. So it's really an easy decision, and it is between Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. What do you think? Dame, go first. Carter or Hunter?
I would go Hunter, honestly. I think they have edge rushers. They have a defensive line that's stabilized right now. I would look at Hunter, and it's simply because you get the best of both, right? You get the corner, you get the receiver. You know what you have in Malik Neighbors. You think about Russell Wilson or even Jameis or whoever's at quarterback throwing to both of those guys on the field at the same time. Or what you have. You brought in Deonte Banks a couple of years ago in the draft. They added some more veteran pieces in that secondary. But even putting a Travis Hunter in this secondary, you have receivers, a CeeDee Lamb, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Terry McLaurin, now Deebo Samuel in Washington. You got to be able to cover these guys. So I think that either, like I said, you get the best of both. Depends on where they want to play him or where they view him. I think it should be Travis Hunter. Go ahead and get that blue chip guy that can make an impact on both sides of the ball.
Keith, are we double counting Travis Hunter in that he's a good, not great corner and a good, not great wide receiver, and we're kind of adding them together, and it's like 75 plus 75 equals 150, or is he actually that good at both?
Yeah, well, the thing is that I think cornerback is a question mark somewhat, right? And coming off of his pro day, I was just at Colorado's pro day. I mean, we've watched it on TV also, right? Is that we didn't get any cornerback work, even at the combine. We didn't get any cornerback work. So if I'm an NFL talent evaluator, I'm sitting as a general manager, I have to pick up the context clues and tell me, hey, this guy probably wants to play wide receiver, or he's most comfortable at wide receiver. So I'm looking at Travis Hunter as a wide receiver, which are probably making more difficult for him to play both sides of the football, because just with all the different schemes and situations and adjustments you have to make at corner to be in line with the rest of the secondary, it's going to be tough for him. So I'm looking at Travis Hunter as a wide receiver here. And so I'm not double counting him. I'm just counting him as a really, really good wide receiver.
Okay, wide receiver first there. Williamson, what do you think?
I would go with Hunter simply because I just have a higher grade on him. I think he's more special. Now, if you were to take Carter, I think you could move Thibodeau, and he's been kind of mentioned as a potential trade candidate. You get something decent in return. But to me, Hunter's too good and too enticing to pass up.
The pick is in. Patricia Traina standing by with the selection for number 3 for the Locked On Giants. And by the way, Giants fans, make sure you're tuned in to Locked On Giants and Patricia's work, because she's really good at this and she has good insight. And I think she's nailed the Giants pick multiple times over the last few years. Let's find out who she's got at number 3.
With the third selection in the 2025 Locked On NFL mock draft, the New York Giants select Abdul Carter, outside linebacker, Penn State. With both quarterbacks Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders off the board, the Giants go best available. And in Carter, they get a pass rusher with elite speed and quickness who can boost the Giants' pass rush that, per NFL Pro's stats last year, pressured the quarterback just 34.2% of the times, but only managed a 7.8% sack rate. The Giants, who during their last 2 Super Bowls were 3 deep at pass rusher, would add another solid option to help boost the defense that was burned a little too often for most people's taste last year by quarterbacks who were able to scramble out of trouble.
So it is Abdul Carter, the edge rusher, and I can't say I don't like this pick, because even if Travis Hunter's an awesome corner or an awesome wide receiver, I think an awesome edge rusher still trumps both of those things, and I would rather have that. And Matt, it kind of sets up a pretty nasty front 7 for the New York Giants.
Yeah, it does. And, she kind of mentioned the Strahan era and, get back to Giants football. And I think this team has lost its identity. I understand that. I'm sure the rest of the division is not thrilled with trying to block this front. I mean, that does not look fun at all with Dexter Lawrence. So I understand it. I just think Hunter's special.
Yeah, I think to Williamson's point, like Patricia said, like if you go Abdul here, this is a potential situation where on rushing downs, he could potentially play off, being your star off-ball backer, because he has, I think if he played, I know for me, if he stayed at off-ball backer, he probably would have been a first-round pick either way. Like, he's just that talented of a linebacker as an athlete. And when you're dealing with Jalen Hurts, you're dealing with Dak Prescott, Jaden Daniels in that division, like, you kind of, you got to figure out, like, how do we contain these guys, keep them in the pocket, especially on 1st and 10. Is like, yeah, the play action game is there, and they can break, contain, use their legs. You need a guy that can run with them and move with them, and Abdul can do that. And then on 3rd downs, even if you, like William said, alluded to, if you don't trade Kayvon, slide Kayvon down as a stand-up guy ahead of guards. You get Brian Burns on the opposite side. You have Abdul, Dexter Lawrence in the middle. That's a terrifying front 4. And we saw how impactful just getting to the quarterback with 4 can be when we watched the Super Bowl this year. Yeah, you want to be able to rush with 4.
Bring that NASCAR package back to the New York Giants. I kind of like that. Keith, can he be as good as the guy who used to wear number 11 at Penn State? Are we scouting the helmet here? How good can Abdul Carter be in the NFL?
Yeah, without a doubt, I think he could be just as good. I think Micah is a little bit bigger overall, right? And maybe have a little bit more explosiveness and functional strength. But when it comes down to bend around the edge and getting to the quarterback, I flat out think he can. And this is the one thing DP kind of hit on it, but I've always said this is that I think that Abdul Carter is the better stacked linebacker. So I envision a front seven where maybe in first and second down, Abdul Carter is actually playing linebacker for you. And then you can do some exotic things on third down, or just imagining all of the quarterbacks that you guys just listed off. Well, how does that look now that Abdul Carter is actually the spy linebacker on Jaden Daniels, right? Or he's the spy guy on Jalen Hurts in certain situations. So it's kind of compounding similar, I guess, skill sets with adding another edge rusher. But I think it could potentially make you more dynamic as a defense, which could be fun.
Positionless football coming to an NFL defense near you. We got corners that play wide receiver. We've got edge rushers that play off-ball backer. We've got tight ends that line up in wildcat. We got guys that can do everything in this draft. The New England Patriots are on the clock now at pick number 4. We got a new host here on the network. Nick Cattles is going to make the selection for the Pats here. There's a clear best player available in Travis Hunter. We've talked about him a lot. There's also phone calls happening behind the scenes because there are trades in the works in this mock draft. And I wonder if a team could potentially come up to pick number 4, or if not, there could be an opportunity for some other teams to move around. So stay tuned there. And I know my guy, Eric Crocker, host of Locked On 49ers at 11, has made a few of those calls. The right player has to fall down the board. So we'll see what happens there. But we're talking about the Patriots here. This pick is really easy if they stick with it. Do you think, guys, though, that Matt, we'll start with you. I mean, there's a blue chipper there. Maybe it doesn't fit the biggest need. It's not a wide receiver. It's not a tackle. Do you dare go a different position, go another direction?
No, I run to the podium for Hunter and I tell him you're a wide receiver first, and on throwing downs, you're going to play some corner. And you and Drake May are going to be best friends, and you're going to learn some things from Stephon Diggs, and you're going to play a lot of offense, and you're going to be a star. And I'm thrilled about it.
Yeah, I would run the card. I'm not wasting time. I'm not talking about it. This is the move we're making it to Williamson, and to Keith's point, especially for the Patriots. This is my ideology, my thought process. You brought in Colton Davis through free agency. You have Alex Austin. You have Christian Gonzalez. I don't see a need at corner here. Get Travis Hunter to be that wide receiver 1B with Stephon Diggs. You got Jalen Polk. I think Javon Baker, they drafted 4th round last year. Give Drake May the weapons he needs. You can get an offensive tackle in round 2.
Can you get an offensive tackle in round 2, Keith? It feels like those positions dry up. And this year, there's not a lot of them. We got everyone's short-armed out there. Like, what's going on? If Drake May can't be upright, can he even find any of those wide receivers we just talked about?
Right. That's why I'm going off. I would go offensive tackle here. I would go Will Campbell. Listen, everybody's arguing over a quarter of an inch. I'll tell you this. When he's 330 pounds coming at you, I want to know if you're worried about a quarter of an inch on the arm, right? So I'll go Will Campbell. I put him at left tackle. I have somebody to protect Drake May. And I think at the very worst, you're talking about a guy that can kick inside and play guard for you. Nobody's ever been mad at an all-pro guard. And I also look at this, the head coach, Mike Vrabel, right? We've seen what his blueprint is to winning. It's running the football, it's being physical, it's being tough. Will Campbell is one of the toughest players in his entire draft.
Nick Cattle's ready to go with the pick at number 4 for the New England Patriots. He didn't run the card in. He kind of strolled it in, but it didn't take long for this pick to be made. Nick Cattle's ready to go with pick number 4 in the Locked On NFL mock draft special.
With the 4th overall pick in the Locked On NFL mock draft, the Patriots select wide receiver cornerback Travis Hunter from Colorado. If the Patriots could land Travis Hunter at 4 on that Thursday night, they will be doing cartwheels. Let's start with the fact that Hunter is one of only 2 blue chip prospects in this draft to go along with Abdul Carter. So to land one of the 2 best prospects in the draft at number 4 is incredibly fortunate for the Patriots. Number 2, the Patriots need a lead wide receiver. It's one of their top needs. You look at left tackle, you look at wide receiver. They signed Stephon Diggs just a couple of weeks ago, but of course, Stephon Diggs is now in his 30s. He's coming off ACL surgery. He's more likely a 2 than a 1. So what better? What better than to go out, draft Travis Hunter, and put him under the learning tree of Stephon Diggs? You now have Hunter as your lead receiver by the middle of the year and Diggs as your number 2. And finally, Hunter is a Vrabel kind of guy. Work ethic. He plays hard. He's selfless. He will fit in perfectly for that Patriots locker room and the culture that Mike Vrabel is trying to establish in New England. So that's the pick. Travis Hunter, number 4 overall. Patriots are ecstatic to land him at that spot.
A great point by Nick there in the analysis, making the selection of Travis Hunter to the New England Patriots is the high character of the player too. And he played an unbelievable amount of snaps at Colorado. Can he keep doing that in the NFL is my question. Matt, what do you think? Can you play like a full complement at 2 positions in the NFL, or does he have to star in one and maybe dabble in the other? And can you dabble at corner? Because we've really never seen it.
It's a hard one to answer, but I do think people need to realize that there's not as much hurry up. There's more snapping. You get a little bit more break between snaps at the NFL level. There's not as many snaps as total. Now, I don't know how feasible it is in terms of what, position room he goes to and all that. But unless he goes to a team like New England that has a massive need on one side as opposed to the other, I would try to feature him in like 60% of both. Like rundowns, he's just not out there. If it's 3rd and 8 on either side of the ball, he's always out there. I would try to save him that way and try to double dip and get my cake and eat it too.
That's kind of a wild thought because, like Dame, he wouldn't even start, right?
Sort of. Playing against 3 wide, maybe. Right.
Just playing the most impactful role too. It's kind of a wild thought. We've never really gone through this.
No, yeah, I think this is a good pick. I think I saw the quote from Coach Vrabel said, we view him as both. When I think at the NFL league meeting the other week, he said, we view him as both corner and wide receiver. And I believe he said that we're willing to let him play both. I think if you're going to do that, to me, the most feasible part to that, 'cause I think what Williamson was saying to attest to that, Coach Prime said that after the pro day, it was like he made those exact points. Like the game is slower. It's slower at the NFL level. It's not, he said in college, we're hurry up. And to be honest, there's more commercial breaks because there's more money involved. So you get a lot more time to break and different things like that. But I think if he's going to play both sides of the ball the way he kind of wants to, I think for me, it should be starting at corner and allowing him to get that package on offense rather than, because it's difficult to go from playing mostly receiver and then go into corner, things of that nature. I think that's kind of how you want to play it. You sort of start in corner, you go 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers. He's one of the 3 on the field. He may not start on offense, but he can start on defense. Either way, for me, for the New England Patriots, I kind of want him at receiver in this offense. I want him at receiver. I want Drake May to have 2 guys that can run routes, make plays after the catch, have ball skills. We know how electric this young man is. He could really, under the tutelage of Stephon Diggs, talking about a year or so, he could be one of the better receivers in the league.
Keith, is it short-sighted to play? It's sort of like the idea of drafting for need versus drafting best player. Is it also short-sighted to train your draft pick to play the needy position and not what he's best at?
Yeah, I think it is short-sighted. I believe in putting every player in the best position possible to be successful, right? Like if you have a guy that could be potential all-pro, but you put him in a situation where he's just a Pro Bowler, then you're kind of shortchanging the young man and you're shortchanging your pick. So I think it's your responsibility as a coach, as the GM drafts him, is your responsibility to put him in the best position possible. And we've seen this across the league. Guys go from different schemes and different situations and their play fluctuates. It's because they're not being put in the best position possible. So I look at Travis Hunter and I say that's the part that kind of worries me a little bit. I have to be completely honest with the playing both sides of the football. It's just that I worry that are we being able to fully invest into him at the cornerback position? And that's why I went back to the beginning, is that even when you watch the film and you marry with what he's done or hasn't done in the combine and pro days, like what are we really getting as a cornerback prospect, right? Like how fluid are his hips? Just the certain drills we see at the combine that we use to judge that. We haven't seen it at the combine and we haven't seen it at pro day. So I just want to make sure that they truly take their time to teach and develop him on both sides of the football.
This year's Big Four are off the board. Now it's big wig time. Tony Wiggins on the clock. Maybe a big man in his sights at the number 5 selection. The Jaguars are up next in the 2025 Locked On NFL Mock Draft. This episode of the Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. If it was just that easy for NFL teams to find the exact right candidate for all the positions they're trying to fill. And when you post your job, LinkedIn's new features can help write job descriptions, quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hiring frame, the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Both quarterbacks, both blue chippers are now off the board for Tony Wiggins and the Jacksonville Jaguars at pick number 5. And so now things get very interesting, and the draft could go a number of ways from here. The chalky pick has been Mason Graham in this selection, and it almost feels like it can't happen that way because it's too chalky, and it's been that way for too many weeks and too many months in mock drafts. How do we see this thing? Damian, what do you think about the 5th pick for the Jags here?
I think it's defense, right? You look at either corner with Will Johnson still on the board or defensive line. You have Josh Allen Hines. Let me make sure I say his name correctly after the change. You got Josh Allen Hines. You have Trayvon Walker. They selected Mason Smith out of LSU in the 2nd round last year. It's really a question mark of what you're going to get out of him. We have to see if he can get him back to that freshman pre-injury version of himself. But I think Mason Graham, just a clean, high floor player. I think there's a lot of upside with him as a pass rusher. But when you turn on the tape and watch him at Michigan, you have big 6'3", 340-pound Kenneth Grant, who's his teammate, and opposing offensive lines paid more attention into stopping Mason Graham. I think this is a guy that can play the run. I think you play him at 3 tech or even some 4-eye as a single gap penetrator, where he wasn't able to do that at Michigan because he saw so many double teams. You let him get one-on-one. I think he can deconstruct one-on-one blocks, be a menace in the run game, reset the line of scrimmage, and then also get into the backfield. Me and Keith talked about it on the podcast. So on to the arm length. Arm length is great if you know how to use it. It's all about boxing. If you know how to time your punches, you know how to land your strikes. That's who wins the matches. Typically, is the guy who can land the most punches. I think he's an advanced guy with his hands. I think he knows how to kind of overcome the lack of length with the wingspan.
You know, I don't even have much of a problem with arm length for the interior guys anyway. You're almost a little quicker to the punch if you got shorter arms, and that's why you play inside. Some guys look like they almost have too much length and they can't really operate in a phone booth at times. So, arm length, it's important. Edge, offensive tackles, I'm not that into it when it comes to the defensive tackles. And by the way, I feel like everybody's got an inch longer arms than whatever they were measured at the combine anyway. So I don't even know what to think about arm length in this year's class. Matt, real quick, before we get to this pick here at number 5, because the pick is in, any dark horse selections for you other than Mason Graham at number 5?
A sneaky one to me would be Genty. I mean, people talk about him, is 6 too early? Well, then 5's not too early. I mean, I think he's a special player as well. He'd be my last blue chip guy. I think the Will Johnson suggestion was sort of interesting. I would probably lean towards Campbell or Membo, though. I just think I'd find a spot on the O-line, protect my greatest asset, try to change the trenches on that side of the ball.
There's a number of ways that Tony Wiggins can go, it turns out here. And the pick is in. Locked On Jaguars host Tony Wiggins ready to go at pick number 5 in the Locked On NFL mock draft.
With the 5th pick in the 2025 NFL draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of the University of Michigan. Look, he's big, he's strong, he's fast, he plays hard, he has high football character, he checks all of the boxes, he's played at a very high level and knows how to win. But this pick isn't necessarily the biggest need for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have Eric Armstead and Mason Smith, who they picked in the 2nd round last year. But it is an important choice because it's the first pick for 3 first-timers. First-time head coach Liam Cohen, first-time GM James Gladstone, and first-time EVP Tony Baselli. And I think they just have to hit a home run at a critical position, and they have to get improvement stopping the run and getting interior pass rush. I expect him to start, but this isn't just about 2025 and being able to line up. This is about the future and what he brings to the Jaguars organization.
So it is Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan, to the Jacksonville Jaguars at pick number 5. Keith, it sounds like Wig just told us this was one of those WTF picks, right? Just watch the film, draft the dude who plays like a maniac inside. What's the scouting report on Mason Graham?
Yeah, first step explosiveness, physical hands, right? DP talked about it, right? He's a gap penetrator. He's a high motor guy. He provides value in the run game and as a pass rusher, right? The one thing I have is this, and this is what worries me, and I'm kind of with Matt on this. I probably would have went offensive line here, and that's just because I don't want to get to week 6, week 7 of the season and say we can't protect our quarterback, right? Because usually when you get to that point, there's no solution. You're not picking up a guy off the street to protect your quarterback that you feel good. And we have to be completely honest about the Jacksonville Jaguars. Y'all on the brink of an epic failure. If we don't get a good year out of Trevor Lawrence, the conversation is going to be, is it time to move on? We're going into year 5 of this project/situation. And just because you paid him, right, doesn't mean that the fan base is sitting there saying, hey, we're really happy with what's going on. So I think you should put all your investments into Trevor Lawrence. He's one of the most talented QB prospects we've seen. And unfortunately, the Jacksonville Jaguars have not done what they need to do to be able to surround him with the acquisite pieces.
All right, the top 5 is in. We are done with 5 picks now. Jacksonville Jaguars have made their selection. We're on to pick 6 next time, but we want to check in with the team building experts from the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, 2 of my favorite analysts, not only on this network, but in the entire draft world. They've been doing phenomenal stuff for a long time. The draft dudes, as they are sometimes known. We got a lot of talent here on the network, guys. And I want to get their thoughts on somewhat of a chalky opening to our Locked On mock draft.
Kyle, when I look through this crop of picks, the thing that really stands out to me is the Giants selecting Abdul Carter at number 3. And I give them a lot of credit. You don't necessarily look at the Giants as a team that needs a pass rusher. Kayvon Thibodeau, Brian Burns set as our edge rushers, but they went with the best player on the board. And I respect that so much. Didn't have to reach for a quarterback, right? Maybe you don't like Shedeur Sanders. That's okay. You don't have to pick him. Don't pass over the blue chip talent here in Abdul Carter. And I love that they were willing to do that despite it not being a need. I think Abdul Carter might be the best prospect in the draft. The Giants get him at pick number 3.
Yeah, well, the Browns did the Giants a favor and removed that temptation for a quarterback by taking Shedeur Sanders with the 2nd overall pick. So you have quarterbacks that go 1 and 2. And for Cleveland, with where the intersection of where they're at as a football team, they've spent cash at a very high rate over the last couple of seasons. Being in a position to have a rookie quarterback contract at that position amidst the potential and future offloading of Deshaun Watson to kind of help bring those scales a little bit closer to balance, I think was a primary motivating factor here for a move like this getting done. And I do think it's the appropriate decision for where Cleveland is at. Now, whether or not Shedeur Sanders ends up manifesting into the quarterback that the Browns need, that's a whole other can of worms either way. But the way that this can branch off of the direction that the Browns have been going, I think gives them long-term the potential to keep more talent because they don't have to be worried about continued ramifications of that contract looming over every personnel move that they make.
I love that the Patriots are able to stick and pick Travis Hunter at number 4. I think that's another good side effect of 2 quarterbacks going in the top 3. If you look at this draft as the 2 blue chip talents being Abdul Carter, Travis Hunter, the Patriots need the Browns or the Giants to pick a quarterback. To land one of them, it happens. And I think that's quite the quote-unquote consolation for blowing their chance to have the number 1 pick with their Week 18 win over the Bills. They probably get the player they would have drafted anyway here at number 4.
Now let's get some fantasy insight with a pair of quarterbacks kicking off this draft. Marcus Mosher of Locked On Dynasty Football is here with his thoughts.
And let's start with Cam Ward, who goes at number 1 to the Tennessee Titans. This is not a fantastic landing spot for his fantasy upside because this just isn't a very good offensive line right now. They pay big money to Dan Moore in free agency. They're hoping J.C. Latham can be a star on the right side, but they've got lackluster playmakers with Calvin Ridley operating as the number 1 receiver. We'll see about Treylon Burks and the rest of the receivers, but where Cam Ward's fantasy upside will lie is in his rushing ability. Now, he didn't run a ton at Miami or Washington, but he's a very good athlete. don't be surprised if Brian Callahan tries to maximize his upside and usage by using him more as a runner, kind of like what we saw with Jaden Daniels and the Commanders last year. Again, not a great landing spot for fantasy purposes, but expect him to go pretty high in your Superflex dynasty drafts and to be somebody that you consider in the later rounds of your 2025 redraft leagues just because of that rushing upside. Now, as for Shedeur Sanders, who goes at number 2 in this mock to the Cleveland Browns, this is a good landing spot in the fact that Kevin Stefanski is one of the better offensive minds in the league. But with a bad offensive line playing in a tough division, Shedeur Sanders just doesn't offer the fantasy upside that we like to see from our quarterbacks. This is a good landing spot for him specifically. But in terms of what we're doing in our fantasy leagues and our dynasty leagues, he's probably somebody that we should avoid drafting at that spot. However, the player that we should target here is Travis Hunter, who goes 4 to the New England Patriots. This is the most ideal landing spot for Travis Hunter because the Patriots are probably the team that is the most likely to let Travis Hunter play both positions, wide receiver and cornerback. We know that Mike Vrabel, who had a long career playing both sides of the ball, defense, linebacker, and catching touchdowns, I think he'd be open to the idea of moving Travis Hunter around, allowing him to play both spots. But with the Patriots already having Christian Gonzalez, their first-round pick in the 2023 draft, they just don't have that need for another lockdown corner. What they really need is a wide receiver that'll be dynamic and can create plays down the field with Drake May. So if you're hoping that Travis Hunter gets a shot to play offense full-time in the NFL, landing in New England is a pretty good destination for his fantasy value and dynasty value. Let's hope that happens late April when we get to the 2025 NFL draft.
Matt, when it comes to fantasy, it's really not that far off from reality when it comes to drafting a quarterback number 1, because it might be like, okay, look, this doesn't look like a fantasy juggernaut football team right now, but if you hit on that quarterback and the threat of what Cam Ward could be, not only his fantasy value, but the receivers for him, that could become a fantasy juggernaut, and you can start putting up a lot of points on offense as well. And look, if you're a bad team, your quarterback throwing from behind a lot can help your fantasy team in some ways as you're developing. What do you think about that aspect of these prospects at the top?
Yeah, and I also like, as Marcus mentioned, they really finally invested in the offensive line. So he's landing in a good spot there. The running game should be decent enough for a first overall pick. And, that early second rounder maybe turns into a wide out opposite Ridley, too. So I don't think it's a bad landing spot for fantasy points.
Best pick so far of the first day of the draft here. Keith, Damian, is there a pick that you liked more than the others?
I'm gonna go Cam Ward to the Titans. Like I said, the Titans needed it, right? You should be really excited, and because I want to say this: that could they be one of the teams that could potentially go from worst to first in their division? When you look at the Indianapolis Colts, they have question marks at quarterback. The Jacksonville Jaguars just have question marks, period. The Houston Texans, good football team, right? But I think they are going to have to evolve as an offense and figure out some things without Stephon Diggs. Could the Tennessee Titans, injected with the youth of Cam Ward and good quarterback play, be competitive in the AFC South?
Dame,
I go with Cam Ward as well. I think now that you have the guy that you believe in, right? It's different coming in as a head coach and a staff to a quarterback situation like last year with Will Levis. Now you draft the guy you believe in most, the guy you feel like I can pencil him in to what we do. And now you use the rest of this draft to whether it's go get one of his security blankets from Miami, maybe Elijah Arroyo on day 2 at tight end, somewhat a familiar face with him to walk into NFL training camp with, be his bunkmate in NFL training camp, things of that nature that he could study with, get really comfortable in this scheme, in this offense. I think they have the groundwork, and like he said, just kind of hitting on a couple more of these picks. He did a solid job in free agency. We could see a complete turnaround from what we saw in 2024.
I kind of like picks 3 and 4 myself, to be able to sit back and get a truly difference-making player. And you look back, it wouldn't be a shock in a few years. You look back and you're like, how did Travis Hunter, who became the best player in this draft, how did teams let him fall to number 4 and the New England Patriots with what he could be at his upside. Is it going to be one of those drafts? We'll find out. We're on to pick number 6 in the next episode of the Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special. It is the Las Vegas Raiders who are now on the clock, and can't wait to see who they select and who the rest of the teams and our hosts select. That's it for the first episode of the Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special, sponsored by LinkedIn. Your team every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. On to the next episode, the rest of the top 10, and will we see a third quarterback off the board potentially? Tune in to find out. And don't forget, you can find the entire special on both audio and video at the Peacock and Williamson NFL show feed, Locked On NFL Draft, and Locked On NFL podcast feeds. For Matt Williamson, Damian Parson, Keith Sanchez, I'm Brian Peacock. We'll see you for the rest of the top 10 in the next episode of the Locked On NFL Mock Draft Special, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.